Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Today's show, we have the Chancellor of the North Dakota University System, Mark Hagerett. Mark, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for
As
having
we
me.
get started, tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your background and, of course, where you're from.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thank you, John, for having me. This is a great venue. My great-grandfather homesteaded here in North Dakota before statehood, and my dad's a farmer today, so that's probably the key thing to know. But I moved around a lot. My dad was in the Navy. I spent a couple early years of my life here in Mandan, where I'm now living. But after moving around about, 6, 7 different places, my dad worked on missile silos, then I went in the Navy myself. So before coming here, I had a full career in the Navy. And many years in the Navy, and of course got back here whenever I could, and was a farmhand in the summers as a kid, and back now living in Mandan.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what got you back to North Dakota. When did you get back?
Yeah, I got back about 16 months ago, I'd done a full Navy career in technology, engineering, and education, and so I was looking for a way to get back closer to family, and actually was applying for a couple different jobs at different times, watching, and then saw a chance to come back to serve in this role. So,
Sure. So what made you interested, other than coming back to North Dakota? What popped up for interest in this job?
Well, I've been an educator now for years with the Navy, and I just realized that the most important thing we have going on is helping our young people get ready for the future. And I just love young people, and I include adult learners in there too, young at heart, young in mind. And it was just the draw to come back and help our state and our community, having served, at the Navy as a national level, the Naval Academy, helping the nation. It was a chance to come back home and help.
Okay. And how about the transition in the job so far? How's that been going?
It's been wonderful. I bought my mom's house in Mandan. I own a couple quarters of land out by Crown Butte, where I helped my dad. So it was like, basically took the job, arrived, and moved a few more things in, and just a welcoming by family coming home, and my cousins and uncles and aunts, and of course my dad, though he wants me to do a lot of work on a weekend, So, but no, it's been a very, very nice transition, and the staff that I work with, wonderful people. So it's been great.
Well, tell us, you mentioned your naval career a couple of times here already. Tell us a little, just briefly, what rank you retired at and some of your duties there, and did that help prepare you for the job you have now?
Oh yeah, no, it was great. The Navy was great. I retired as ship captain. I was a captain in the Navy. And yeah, it was actually very good preparation, because I had a couple decades in nuclear engineering, ship operations, networks, then shifted to education. I was actually taught both cybersecurity and technology, but also history, kind of philosophy of technology. And so that, combined with years in the Navy and the Pentagon doing programs, budgets, working with legislators, you can see in a chancellor's job, working with our state board, my 8 bosses, the legislators, the governor's office, but then also working with college presidents. Navy is a good fit. Navy is a big education organization, so a nice set of skills, I think, brought with me.
Okay. With that said, what about your impressions of the North Dakota University system, its presidents, its board, and the way it's structured?
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful group of people. I mean, one of the things I took from the Navy is the idea that you're a public servant. You serve your ship, you serve your country, and I find that that's one of my goals as a chancellor, is we build a team of servant leaders, and it was just such a great thing to come here and find so many servant leaders, that they put their people, their students, and the people of North Dakota ahead of themselves. And so we've got programs that are top ranked in the country. The Dakota Nursing Program, top ranked. We've got cutting edge technology programs, yet we have people who know their students by name. When I've walked around some college presidents, they actually know people. So really it's a great system. It's distributed across the state. We're a big state, relatively speaking. So I find that some people in one part of the state don't even know there's another college in another part of the state. But we got 11 of them working increasingly collaboratively. So it's been a good team to join.
Yeah. Do you think, has it been difficult? Is it going to be difficult in sort of overseeing a system that seems to have somewhat a lot of legislative oversight?
Yeah, well, the history of North Dakota is important here. That people don't know, we had a very energetic Governor Langer, who was in the office in the 30s, but also was the Attorney General in the 20s as a young man. And he had a little overreach and tried to basically get control of the colleges. And colleges are crucial because they're transforming the young people, right? They're passing knowledge on, they're passing on culture, and rightly, the state legislature asserted itself back in the 30s and established the state board. But also, they have a tradition of being protective of education, been generous in funding, and I think that's all a positive thing. Very engaged. Some states where the legislature's gone hands off, the budgets have dropped off. And so, yeah, it's kind of complicated, but I like the level of interaction and some great legislative advocates for higher education.
Okay. Well, with all that said, now setting the stage here, let's get to issues. What are some of the big issues that's facing higher education right now?
Okay. Well, to frame it for you, we probably could have no better lead-in than just the election last week. I know by the time this will air, it was actually last night for all of us, that we are in a period of incredibly profound change in knowledge, in some cases technology, some cases knowledge about medicine, business, energy. That the most significant challenge we have is adapting our system to be passing on the right knowledge to our young people. They come to us. I mean, we have a public trust of money, taking care of this huge billion-dollar enterprise, but we have a sacred trust because these kids come to us and parents are relying on us. So the first challenge is that we are staying current. Our faculty are staying current. They have the tools to adapt our young people to the changing knowledge. Secondly, we have to be adapting to what our business people need, to create wealth, the workforce needs. I mean, it's very clear that now college is directly related to so many skill sets in the economy that we're making great efforts, maybe talk about later, to connect with business leaders to adapt our programs to better support workforce. Third of that, though, is that money's tight for families. We know the data from, I think, middle class incomes, upper working class, lower middle class incomes peaked around 1979, the year I went off to the Navy. And so it's important for us to keep costs down and affordable for our families. And then lastly, the students themselves are changing. Just look at technology, how they interact. So even if the knowledge is the same, meaning math is there, calculus is there, how do they learn? How are they learning? So a lot of challenges adapting to this period of change, and we may be able to get into that, but we're adapting right now. We're working on budgets now, but we also have a longer-term effort to look at how we might need to change for the future called Envision 2030. So if we get time, we can come back to that, but a long-term strategy exercise as well.
Okay. Well, let's maybe talk a little bit about the upcoming legislative sessions. What are some of the key priorities that you hope that will be addressed or you want addressed?
Yeah, on that one, we talked about, the fact that there was just a major, electoral event last night. And so some of the key leaders that I was working with in the legislature have either retired or moving on. So probably to say a little bit less about this, just because I honor the fact of their position that I need to meet with them and meet with the new governor. I met with him before already. We spent several hours talking about how higher education is just a pillar to diversify our economy, and so I'd say workforce is one of those. That our programs are increasingly aligned to be responsive, and the legislature established a study called Workforce Education Advisory Council that several of our business leaders are working with us. We'll want to bring that report forward to see how are we aligning. Students first, affordability, how much the general fund changes, and how much tuition is adapting. Those are crucial, general categories. And then, of course, there's, substantive issues relating to these new knowledge areas, technology relating to unmanned systems, which I think we'll talk about later, data analytics, cybersecurity, new knowledge that's coming through the legislature may help us with. But again, probably hold off a little on this till I've met some of the new members that are coming into the office.
Some of the history has been, there seems to have been consternation in recent years with lawmakers and the university system. Do you have any opinion or understanding why that was? Or why
well,
that is?
as I mentioned, legislative oversight has a tradition that was crucial, because if you look back, and I actually am good friends with some of the great grandsons or the grandson of Governor Langer, that the legislature in this state had crucial interventions at a time to depoliticize, but at the same time they're very generous and they fund higher ed. So as representative of the people, they want to know what's happening with their money. So I think a lot of this was just not taking the effort to build relationships with the legislature, and my staff and the presidents and my board, my bosses, the state board, this past year have spent a lot of time with legislators. We've held joint sessions for the first time in years. We had a joint session between our board and the interim committee, and invited them to all of our state board sessions to make public comment, and aligned several of my study groups on issue areas with their issues they were studying. So I think we're making a lot of progress. You'd probably have to ask them how we're doing.
Well, there you go, because my next question will be, how do you think those discussions have gone and have they been received so far, and do you think you're making progress on bettering those relationships?
Yeah, well, a couple areas they asked us to look at, and we were looking at. One is governance, getting back to your question, the governance of how we structured, how the state board is structured. And my position as a chancellor, one of the questions the legislators had was that the chancellor is the CEO of the system with these 11 independent colleges, which all have different geographical areas, different local workforces. I mean, one of my themes is we have to give the presidents the ability to adapt to local conditions. And so the legislature was concerned about the governance structure of a CEO of that, but the state board would hire and fire the presidents. And I think we're finding some good accommodations with how we do presidential reviews, state board being more involved in that. And so I think the legislators are getting comfortable with that. Mission, duplication, overlap, questions like that, they want us to study that, and we've been studying that, and we're doing a major effort on studying research, the research mission. How are we doing in our research universities on what we're doing? Should we be doing different things? Of course, things related to the efficiency of the enterprise, shared services efficiencies. It's a lot of money that the state is spending on us. They've asked us to look at that, and we've been looking at it from the state board directive as well. So I think our discussions are going well. Representative Sanford was the chair of the committee, and Representative Striley was a co-chair, and we had lots of meetings, and so I feel good about the first 16-month relationship.
Yeah. Do you have any concerns at all that UND and NDSU may act autonomously and sort of separate from the university systems, as it seems like they have at times in the past?
Well, if I could use a Navy analogy, those are the equivalent of like a carrier battle group, okay? Mm-hmm. I mean, and I honor my presidents who run these campuses because they have to respond to changing budgets, local economic conditions, student personalities that are different depending on which region we're in, a big state, and so it's like a big ship at sea. They're the captain. I mean, they have to, when a student gets in trouble, they're responsible for them. I mean, the parents give the students to them for their security and safety. So I want them to be autonomous, taking care of that big school, making sure they're safe, they're hiring the right faculty. But we are one system with one board. Not a set of regions, and I think that's a strength of North Dakota, is that we can then align the system of 11 supporting colleges that get us on a scale that's not unlike University of Minnesota. We just had a meeting at University of Minnesota last week on their supercomputing center and data analytics, and if you add all of our schools together, faculty, student, staff, our enterprise is between 50 to 60,000, depending on how you count it. That's a critical mass if we work as a system on key issues. But on other areas, we want them to be more autonomous, and we're working that out and have a great relationship with them. So I'm not too concerned.
Of course, you've mentioned 11 universities in the state. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of asking you this question: do you look at that sort of a fleet? You've got some bigger ships, some smaller ships, but they all serve their purpose in the state.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a great analogy. I like that because you want to give autonomy, but at the same time, since he introduced this, because I've some people say, okay, the Navy stories only work so much, but North Dakota, looks like an ocean of wheat fields, But yeah, building on that analogy, that if the people of North Dakota are what the fleet of ships is taking care of and providing for, you want to have coordinated missions. You want to think about efficiencies. You don't want duplication, but when you're internal to that, you're running that, you're responding to change and adapting, but you just don't want someone going off on a direction that the state board and the people of North Dakota would say, hold it, that's not in the best interest of our state. And so that's where that balance comes in. And again, we are working very well together. In fact, because of my staff is fairly lean and has limited analytical support, we use the presidents, the 6 presidents, or the cabinet, to do 6 studies we're doing. So they are like a distributed think tank, these presidents, and they're each leading studies that we're looking at: mission, tuition, retention, administrative costs, things that I know in academia are important. Maybe your viewers will be like, okay, enough already. But these are important things that they are leading teams to analyze and make proposals of policies that will go to the state board and have done so already, and eventually it could be part of legislation. So I want to be sure that I respect all the differences we have, but we are working as a system increasingly to help solve problems, and I'm feeling very positive about it.
You mentioned tuitions. Can you talk about the tuition rates currently at the universities?
No, I want to thank John Richmond was the chair of that. He's president down at Wahpeton. That last summer we convened a study group with him and representatives from all the campuses, because tuition is one of those things, you know, if you want to call it, you know, a complex equation of, you know, student interests, location of a university, proximity to a neighboring state or a neighboring country, as in the case of Minot, being north by Canada, and looking at that equation of how do you fund and incentivize students and be able to recruit students, and tuition is a key factor of that. So the State Board just talked about tuition policy just a couple weeks ago and have given approval to move forward on a new plan with the caveat that we study it this year because of changing budget conditions. I mean, from last summer, things have changed pretty significantly on state funding. So, so we're trying to put North Dakota kids first, but also be welcoming to people from the outside, especially neighboring states and from Canada.
Is education at a North Dakota university still a good investment, comparatively speaking?
Oh, it's a great investment. You know, you look at the range of programs we offer. Our tuition's very competitive. In the two-year schools, it's a little higher, but if you look at the range of offerings we have compared to when I was stationed back with the Navy, there's some community colleges that had very little you know, laboratory space, and it was more of the basic classroom classes. But so you can explain a lot of our cost structures. But no, very competitive, and there are things we want to do better, of course, in our university system. We want to improve retention. That has been one of the explicit goals that have been given to the presidents. They were all asked for the first time in years to put down 3 to 5 year goals for retention, because, you know, every North Dakota kid counts. We don't want to lose some young man who comes in there and thinks he's not college material all because he just didn't have the right math preparation. So so it's a good investment, but we're trying to make it a better investment. Get students out on time. 4-year graduation rates are a little lower than we'd want. Trying to improve those as well. But overall, I really encourage the parents who are listening or the young people to you know, make North Dakota your first choice and look at our programs.
Have you had the opportunity to visit all the campuses so far?
I have. No, I've gone around several times. You know, I looped around when I first took the job, and it's the fun part of my job. You know, because the university system, the chancellor does not have a football team, so I've been invited out to NDSU. And I was there last year when the NDSU and UND played. You know, I got to flip the coin. Also Valley City, I was there when they upset. I don't want to see who they were upset by, but you know, there was some games that didn't go exactly what we wanted, but we had a great time. And you know, I was just out at Dickinson for a humanities event, a very thoughtful panel with Senator Wardner on the future of humanities. And yeah, so that's the fun part of my job, is getting out and about.
Okay. Well, let's jump to, I know you want to talk about, you believe, I believe, I understand that you believe unmanned systems are a big thing right now. Can you talk about that, how it fits with the university?
Yeah, North Dakota, we've been blessed with visionaries. You know, I think Senator Hoeven was an early advocate of unmanned systems, Lieutenant Governor, and then the Odegaard School up at UND. But North Dakota is leading the nation on research and testing up at the Fargo, Grand Forks corridor up there. And this is going to change the world. I served on the Defense Science Board study of autonomous systems. And you know, Google is making the #1 priority of buying robot companies, okay? You're seeing this transformation happening across the world economy and the military. And so unmanned systems is going to be a huge challenge, both to the U.S. Air Force, and we're home to 2 great air bases, and to just industry in general. Right now in North Dakota, we are doing unmanned systems work with the first agricultural drone system out of Israel, testing agricultural fields and bring the imagery back. With the utility system, we're doing that up at Grand Forks. So unmanned systems are going to be a huge growth field for the economy, for our workforce, to create wealth for our state, but it's going to involve research universities. We just went to Minnesota with Tom Sawyer of the test center up there, and we found out that is one of the long poles of the tent, so to speak, is data analytics, and you need college professors and faculty and staff, college types of staff, to create the wealth out of data. So it's a huge priority going forward for the state. It has been, and I think it should continue to be.
Well, and you also mentioned cybersecurity as a big concern, and where does that fit? Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, as people are watching the news, I mean, you know, it could be conceivable that the election outcome, a lot of factors played in the election, but there was this thing called the WikiLeaks, you know, and organizations called Anonymous that hacked into emails and were able to read things that people thought were private. Some of the greatest transfers of wealth across the world are happening because of cyber violations. And so it's a priority for our state to build this capability. Our National Guard has been designated a cyber protection team for the Upper Midwest. Well, they need college graduates to do this. The governor has a task force on cybersecurity, but we haven't had a cyber program in our state, and so we're actually behind. We need to catch up on that, and so great work's being done by Ken Nygaard out in NDSU. They're leading that, and in collaboration with UND, and so that's crucial to our economic growth and the security of our systems and our workforce is the cybersecurity pillar, and the university system is moving forward on that.
Well, good. Well, you talk about professors, and how do we compare with professors, the salaries and retaining those teachers you need, professors you need at our institution, and how do we compare regionally, I guess?
Yeah, so it's a complex question because, you know, cost of living comes into these issues too. But our professors are probably, you know, on the more modest side in many comparisons, and you know, but the budget's tight right now, and you know, I commend the faculty, the hard work they're doing every day. You saw that, you know, in many cases salaries were frozen. All the presidents did not take pay raises. That I'm not in any way, in case my new legislative partners are watching, pushing for that. But we want to be able to be competitive in an international market for knowledge creators and professors. Just like, you know, my dad's a farmer. He wants to be able to get the price for his oats or wheat, his grain, that's an international market, not just what's in North Dakota. Because if we just sold North Dakota, it would be pennies on the dollar. So we want to be competitive. We want to be able to pay the high salaries for someone in a field that we're trying to expand and grow, whether it's agriculture, or healthcare, or data analytics. But depending on where you are in the state, cost of living is down. I mean, I'm coming to understand that Fargo is becoming a high-cost area. Grand Forks, I had a legislator tell me, because of maybe some zoning restrictions, there's not a lot of affordable housing for young professors. So it's something we probably need to look at to be able to attract that talent and keep them here.
Well, what about the universities across the state, their impact on the state economy?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, it's a huge factor. Ratios range from, you know, 5 to 1 to maybe 6 to 1. You know, we're a $1 billion enterprise. I've heard numbers up to, you know, $4.5, $5 billion total impact when you have, you know, the students come in, the research comes in, working with industry. So it is a big industry, but also it is a key. We're going to diversify our economy. You know, right now we have agriculture's been down. My dad's living that, and energy's down in some ways, the way to diversify this is technology, and that comes through knowledge and university research and workforce development. And so I think the impact would be even greater on our economy if the university system can continue to create, you know, knowledge and the workers we need.
Well, you talked about, yeah, we're maybe in a little bit of a lull or whatever you want to call it here with the state economy, but yet overall, college graduates, you talked about retention. Are the college graduates staying in North Dakota? Because in 2003, all we seemed to talk about was out-migration of our young people. What are you seeing now? Yeah,
no, I mean, North Dakota is becoming, I think, you know, a very desirable place. We've always known that. I mean, every time I had a chance, I'd come back from leave, and we go to the Badlands and Medora shows, and I saw like the Mattahay Trail in the Badlands was ranked the top trail in America for biking. You know, National Geographic had the Badlands, the best last 5 places in America. I run into people from my church that are from out of state and they want to live here. I think our students are feeling the same thing. But another key thing of this is we're having students come here. We have a lot of students from out of state, and we're doing research on this because we want to have real numbers for our legislators. But in some cases, up to 40% of the people who come to our school from out of state stay here. And some areas it's maybe 20–25%. So I think we're not so much worried about the outmigration. It's now getting enough people coming in the state because our economy is growing. We have a severe shortage of nursing, for example. I don't think we could solve the nursing problem with just North Dakota kids, that we have to also have people want to keep coming here and join us.
Okay. We don't have a whole lot of time left. Where do you see the university in the next few years? I say 5 to 10, but what do you see?
Yeah, well, I just want to tell you what we're doing. That, you know, I've studied a lot as a professor, and so I don't want to give a lecture on what I study. But for a system to flourish, it has to do two things. First, it has to keep the trains running every day, keep the lights on, the students come in, we teach them. Second, you have to adapt, like I mentioned, adapt to budgets, adapt to some new technologies. But third, an organization has to remake itself. When you think about it, there was never a locomotive industry. There were horses and buggies, and all of a sudden a new industry emerged, aviation emerged. Well, our university system is doing this effort called Envision 2030, to envision the university system in 15 years, because we realize with the rate of change going on, things are going to have to change a lot. But I don't have a monopoly on a vision. We need stakeholders to all share with us. So we've established this effort called Envision 2030, thinking of someone entering kindergarten now would come into our schools in 2030. What would we need to be doing? And we're going to talk about the student of the future, lots of stakeholders coming together, legislators coming together.
Mark, we're out of time. Good luck in your job, and thank you for joining us today.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Thank you, John.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Post this week. And as always, thanks for watching.
Funding provided by the members of Prairie Public.